Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick little run through intensity and why it's important to gauge it correctly. A lot of people generally don't train hard enough. They do a lot of volume, but they don't train hard enough inside that session. Therefore, that leads to more and more volume, and that's how they end up getting their results, but also cooking themselves at the same time. So, intensity. A basic way to gauge it is on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being absolutely failure. I'm absolutely cooked, I'm fucked, I've got nothing left in the tank, can't do any more reps. And 0 being good go all day, not a drama, don't feel a thing. So, the sweet spot is the 8 to 9 area. 7 is questionable. Usually I'm like, it's more of a 6. It's a bit of a get out of jail sort of number. But you want to be a definite 8 or 9. 10 sparingly, okay? You don't want to go to 10 failure every single rep, every single set, every single session. Why? Because I'm going to get into that stuff in a second. However, if you're under a 7, you're nowhere near hard enough, all right? We need to be between the 8 to 9. Why? Because that is where it's going to cause enough pressure on the system, on the body, on the muscle tissue to be able to go, oh, I've got to adapt to this. I've got to recover, adapt, so then I can do it again easier next time. Your body's always looking to do things easier. It loves a comfort zone. So we've got to train it and push it hard enough so it wants to change and it wants to adapt, but not too hard where we start to fuck ourselves over. So, failure, sometimes. Now this is on testing days. Once every, I'm going to say 4 to 6 months is more than enough. We shouldn't be going any more than that. Why? Because that's where you should be on your limit. If we go to that point of failure, injury risk goes through the roof. Now, I'm going to get into that sort of stuff. If we're going there always, and we're always pushing to our absolute threshold of failure, can't do any more reps, can't do any more sets, all this kind of stuff, we start to compromise recovery, which is going to flow into a lot of different things. So once that happens, it starts to flow onto the next session, but then onto the next session, but then onto daily tasks, how we adapt, how we recover, how we emotionally are, which leads into, it's going to force you, once we start to compromise recovery, so we can't catch up and recover back to 100% after that session, we're forced into a drop in intensity. We can't back it up the next day. Why? Because we're not refueling back to 100% of our batteries. Then that's going to lead to injury risk going up. All of a sudden, we're still trying to train at that intent, but the body just can't give it anymore. That's going to create a massive overload on the central nervous system, which is going to start to create too much demand. And this is when everything else starts to come in. We start to push the stress response in the body through the roof, cortisol starting to run, and this is where the bad side effects come from training. Training is a good stress, but too much is not good. Then we start to create emotional responses in the brain, in the body, and we start to then react too much emotionally. When something starts to happen in our day-to-day, we get a little bit overwhelmed and stressed and we get anxious and all this kind of stuff. We start to feel those. We start to run on caffeine and other things to try and keep us up, which is going to flow into this negative phase even more. And then we start to push into overeating, emotional eating. We start to get a bit depressed. We start to look for simple sugars to rely on. And that's when we start to really dive ourselves back into the shit position that we probably started in the first place. So it's important to gauge exactly where you are and actually meet the program where you are, not where you want to be and think you need to be. If you aren't training, 5 days a week and you can't fit it into your schedule, don't fucking do it. Meet where you are. If you can only do 2 sessions, you can only do 2 sessions. We want to make sure intensity is up always, but if you're finding you're just constantly grinding and not quite recovering, then, push some sessions back a little bit. It's okay. Your body need to meet your body where it is and what it can recover from. And then we can start to add in fun things later. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that makes it pretty clear. but the sweet spot for intensity is 8 to 9, 10 out of 10, and failure sometimes.